Have you picked your podcast?
I have like 2 different options, and depending on how we're feeling, I'm going to go 2 different ways.
Okay.
That's true. Because
What's the deciding criteria there? Are you going to decide?
It's going to be based off of vibes and whatever comes out of my mouth.
And that's beautiful.
Welcome to Podcast Cast. Hello and welcome to Podcast Cast. It's a podcast where we talk about podcasts. I'm Sam.
I'm Honor.
And today we are joined by the one, the only, Liz. Hi, Liz.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
Liz, we're excited to have you here.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you here that I think we gabbed for a full hour before we started this podcast.
It is legitimately
that is
just about
not a full hour. Close to it, though. But that's fun. That's the fun part is just get to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about, so you and Honor used to be coworkers.
Yes.
And it sounds like during this time you guys might have melded together mentally because you have a similar taste in podcasts. You're both you like Dimension 20.
Dabbling my toes.
Dabbling your toes.
Dipping my toes in.
You're not ready for an official review. You don't know if you love it. You're not ready to.
I'm sure I'd love it. I like the cast because I've seen Dropout.
Okay.
So I know I'm gonna like the people in it, but I can't. Yeah. I see the edits.
And I have the knowledge.
The edits of Dimension 20. There's one
like clips, just like little clips.
Do you know what an edit is?
I'm familiar with the word edit.
So it's like you know how people make like TikTok edits of like Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
It's like that, but for Dimension 20. I got on one where they were doing Wicked songs, and it's just a bunch of clips of Allie and just no one mourns the Wicked in the background. And I was like, I don't even know what campaign this is from. And there was one with,
it's all of them.
And then there was one where, oh my God, I can't remember his name now. The one with the glasses, the guy has really short hair. He's always sits next to Emily. I can't remember his name, but there was one with him and...
is it Emily's husband?
I guess.
Murph?
Yes.
Okay,
God.
Yes. It's him and Zach.
Sometimes he has long hair. Yeah.
I really...
Him and Zach, and it's What Is This Feeling, also from Wicked.
That's awesome.
And I just find it hysterical.
Yeah.
I'm glad, and I am glad to feel entirely left out, and I don't know who any of these people are.
Right
but
now.
I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. And what else will be fun is to talk about some podcasts. I want to talk about my podcast first.
Okay.
Because I always want to do that. Listener, you may not know, but we in our inbox have had a bit of a... We've been visited by some characters, notably Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock B. Holmes.
I don't know why you insist on putting the middle initial there.
Because it's important.
Is it canonically B is the middle name?
I don't think it is canonically B.
No. The B is to
B extra?
to be a fun little Easter egg for true fans.
Okay. All right.
For like bodacious.
So, Sherlock Bodacious Holmes.
Yes.
I love that. Well, so we got visited by Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, his enemy. Some people in our email inbox signed off like that.
Yeah.
And also, I've been listening to some history podcasts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was like, what if there was a podcast about late Victorian England and Sherlock Holmes, and I found it. Today, I want to talk about Sherlock Holmes Short Stories by the Noiser Network.
I love the name.
That's
so
awesome.
It's narrated by a guy named Hugh Bonneville.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about Hugh Bonneville. I've taken this podcast very easily. I've taken it as it comes to me. And I was like, what if I just look up a Sherlock Holmes podcast? And I got it, and I just kind of like strapped in, and I was like, read me stories, Hugh. And Hugh's done it, and Hugh's done a great job. It's almost more of like an audio book than like your audio drama podcast. It's not really overproduced. There's not that many sound effects, although there are some, but it's mostly just Hugh Bonneville.
Yeah.
I know his name because he reads it. He says, hello, I'm Hugh Bonneville. Or he's like, hello, I'm Hugh Bonneville, or whatever, however he does it. And he basically just reads you off a Sherlock Holmes story. I don't know if these are originals or if they are like fanfic, essentially. I think they might be abridged versions. That's what it is. If you write Sherlock Holmes in the modern time, it's fanfic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch is one of the most famous fanfic actors of all time.
Yeah. Can you read some of the titles and I might know if they're real or not?
That's what I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So this podcast, usually a story, like an adventure, is 2 to 3 episodes long.
Oh.
So there's no one-parters, and each episode is roughly 40 minutes, or maybe a little less than that.
Yeah.
But they all come out to be, pretty short stories. I imagine if you read it all, it wouldn't total. Most stories don't total more than maybe not even 30 pages.
Okay.
Like they're very short, and they
Yeah.
feel very short, even though that they're 2-parters.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, okay, we just got here and we're done. Well, and also part of that is the format that they set up, because usually almost every case that Sherlock and Watson take on, it comes in this format. So Watson is narrating all of these, like in universe, like these are the memoirs of you don't. Yeah,
I hope you know that this is typical of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Okay,
but
good. You were saying it like it was some new, like, oh, this is an interesting twist. That's how Sherlock Holmes is written.
No,
I didn't know that.
I'm there.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm just kind of explaining the format of this podcast.
Yeah.
But it's all from the perspective of Watson recounting these tales some years later. And every story kind of follows the same format of person comes to Sherlock Holmes and recounts their tale. And their tale is usually the entire first episode.
Okay.
And they're like, this is what has happened to me and has transpired upon my life. And it's just a really long narrative. And even when it's like, a humble farmer came into the office one day and he could not speak very well. And then the humble farmer's recounting his tale as if he was Shakespeare.
Oh.
So it's still very prosy, no matter who's speaking.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the first part, usually the first episode, is the statement of the case. Sherlock Holmes, strokes his chin a little bit. He ponders. He smokes his pipe. He says, "Okay, have a good day."
Yeah.
And then he says, "Watson, this will be an interesting case." And then usually episode 2 or 3 is Sherlock Holmes doing some investigation and almost immediately finding the answer.
Yeah.
It's not like. I'm most familiar with Sherlock Holmes from like the movies, with Robert Downey Jr., with Iron Man. Liz, that was the most blank expression you've ever given me. All the time you're just like,
If the way
I have
no
idea what the hell you're talking about, Seth. Okay, well, there were Sherlock Holmes movies with, just accept that Iron Man was Sherlock Holmes at one point, okay? All right, okay, we're good. So my familiarity with Sherlock Holmes is from television and movies. And so this is very different to me because in the television and movies, he's struggling, he's thinking, he's finding clues. And in these stories, most of the time, he just gets the answer immediately.
Yeah.
No tension.
Yeah.
But also, I think the answer that he gets, it's all supposed to be based on pure logic and deduction.
Yeah.
But he just comes up with it out of nowhere a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this brings me to a little game I wanted to play.
Okay.
I would like to read you guys the name of an episode.
Okay.
And kind of a summary of the statement of the case. And I want you guys to guess what the result is, what the crime was, how it happened.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
excited.
What is Sherlock Holmes' conclusion?
Okay.
All right. We've got a few here, so we may not do them all.
Okay.
So I've listened to all these stories that are completely out at this point, which is 7.
So there's like 14 to 21 episodes.
Yes. Okay. This one I think is the most normal.
Okay.
This is the most normal
Obsessed
one.
with normal.
The Adventure of the Bruce Paddington Plans is the name of this one. So, Sherlock Holmes' brother, Mycroft Holmes, who works for the government, comes to Sherlock and says, Sherlock, there's been a man who has died. Sherlock says, I know, I've seen it in the papers.
Okay.
And Mycroft says, this is what you don't know. This man used to work at a secret government office where he had access to plans for a super secret submarine that the British Navy is building. a quick tangent, he said, I'll assure you that all naval warfare in the vicinity of the Bruce Paddington is inconceivable. No more context for what the Bruce Paddington does.
That's awesome.
The water ceased to work around it. That's what we know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no idea.
And the Bruce Paddington is the ship.
Is the submarine.
Submarine dates it so hard because nobody builds submarines anymore.
I think
That's
that
what they want you to think.
might be inaccurate, yeah. Okay, so what Sherlock Holmes is told is that this guy worked at this office. He did not have keys to where they kept the secret plans. Only two people ever had keys. And this guy was found in a subway tunnel off the train tracks, having concussive force to the head with 7 pages of the 10 pages of plans.
Whoa.
What happened to this guy?
To me, what happened was he is actually
Please.
I think so. Here's my 2 theories.
Okay.
He's either a spy, and he got into the room because of his great spy skills. He stole the keys. He stole however many pages that are necessary to go and tell, here's the plan. Let's steal the submarine from the British.
Yes.
And somebody interceded him. They killed him because it was like government duty.
Sure.
Or, this is the second theory, somebody else was a spy. And in an effort to steal them back from somebody, he got murdered.
My thought is, I think that's
Yeah.
right. I think he was, because I'm like, why would some pages be missing? I think he tried to take them back from someone and then got killed in that scuffle.
I'm going to give you guys a point on this one. Go teams. So this guy was an honest, hard British patriot. He was a hardworking man. And his boss, the general's brother, cloned the general's keys, broke into the office, took the plans, tried to sell them to a German spy guy.
That makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. But the worker, who was the British patriot, ran him down and said, "What are you doing?" And then they killed him. But they stashed him on top of a railway car.
Oh,
and so that's how he fell. It seemed like he fell from a great height, but he was in the subway, so it was very confusing. Okay, all right, 1
That's
point.
crazy.
Nice.
See, I thought you were gonna say they cloned his brother, and I was like, that's a crazy twist.
I almost
That would
called
be a crazy
before
choice.
this. I was like, there's going to be an evil twin and or sibling.
Where did it come from? Like Jekyll and Hyde, or like evil twin, or is it just because like people that look the same freak people out?
I think it's 'cause
Maybe.
people who look the same freak people out.
Well, I also think it's like kind of something about like, I didn't do this. There's someone who looks like me who did do this.
Yeah.
There's something kind of almost like...
I think that's interesting to people.
I also think for like murder mysteries or whatever, just mysteries in general, it's like, well, if you have 2 people who look exactly alike, then that explains the impossible. Because it's like, how can people be in 2 places at once, etc., etc. I also... I'm curious if this story mentioned at all, because I believe this is how it is in the original Sherlock Holmes, or it might just be in several iterations of Sherlock Holmes stories. This is how it is. Mycroft is actually smarter than Sherlock, and his job for the government is that he is a living encyclopedia.
Yes, they talk about that.
Awesome. What you're talking about.
I really wanted to know, because I find it really funny.
Well, they didn't say that he was smarter than Sherlock Holmes, because Sherlock wouldn't admit that.
Yeah,
but they do talk about that his role is very singular, Watson. It's very singular.
Yeah.
Instead of saying unique, they always say singular. So much so that I had to look up what like singular in the old timey mean. It just means weird, unique. Very singular. Very singular.
There's nothing else
like
it.
Great brows. Like he
Mycroft?
looks like well, the one in the TV show with Benedict Cumberbatch. He looks like he's gonna pull like the craziest question face ever.
Which one do you like? The Adventure of the Speckled Band or The Man with the Twisted Lip?
Oh, the man with the twisted lip.
Sure, we'll go with that one.
Okay. There's a husband and a wife. They live in like a rich villa outside of London. The husband goes into town. The wife goes into town separately. The wife is accidentally in a bad neighborhood because she's trying to go get something and she kind of lost her way. And she sees her noble businessman husband in this like bad neighborhood up on a second floor window. And he yells, and she thinks he's yelling for help. He looks kind of bedraggled. He looks like he doesn't have his normal fancy clothes on. She goes in. They don't let her in. She gets some cops. Eventually, they bust into this building, and they don't find her husband anywhere. The only person that's there is this like known beggar around London who is supposedly like lives in this upper floor area. But so they don't find the husband, but they do find some of his clothes, and there's a window that's open with like blood on it. And at the outside of the window, they find his coat. Like, so the window leads to the Thames, leads to the river, and at low tide, they find that his coat is there, stuffed with coins. So it sank to the bottom of the river. What's the deal with this one, guys? How do our heroes solve this one?
Evil twin.
I actually think that
that's my joke guess.
I actually think that the husband is the beggar, and he's cosplaying, and this is how he's okay. Here's where I'm going with this. He has debt he has to repay, and he's like, I can't go get a job that would ruin my reputation. So he puts on a disguise as this beggar, and the only reason he throws his stuff out the window is he's like, my wife can't find out because, I don't know, Victorian rules or whatever.
Sure.
But he's like, the shame would be too great. I just need to pretend to be the beggar and then show up one day and be like, I'm returned. Or he's just like trying to ditch his wife. He's like, I hate her. I want out of this marriage.
A fascinating theory. Honor, are you sticking with evil twin?
No, my real guess, drugs. I don't know how exactly they're involved.
This episode does start with drugs. It starts with opium.
Good. I was like, there is drugs involved. This reeks of a Sherlock Holmes thing that has to do with drugs.
Maybe it's drug debt.
This point goes to Liz all the way. This guy used to be a journalist.
Okay.
And one day he had to cover begging in London.
Yeah.
And he's such a good theater performer and such a good makeup artist that he can totally transfigure his face, even to have like a twisted lip, like mouth disformity.
I forgot the title. I should have paid attention.
And
I'm
so
obsessed
he
with
becomes
that.
very wealthy from begging, and then gets like a villa and then a wife. So he's not trying to pay off debts. This is his profession.
That's hysterical.
That's
also,
awesome.
you were like a husband and a wife, and I was like so sorry for her.
Yeah.
Like for no reason. R.I.P. That's so crazy.
Okay, I got two more.
Yeah.
One that's pretty short. The Adventure of the Dancing Men. A wife becomes very afraid when childlike drawings of dancing figures show up at her house. What happens there?
Is that all that you can give us?
That's basically the whole. That's the intro. Like, there's not a lot more.
She is frightened that childlike drawings of dancing figures.
Yeah.
They're old drawings, and they were painted over, and the paint has either started to decay or because this is a thing that will happen with real people is they think their house is haunted because drawings start to show up on their walls, and it's like people just painted over it poorly.
Wait, is it in her walls or it's like paper showing up? Like she's getting mailed.
At first, it was like chalk on a wall.
Okay.
And then it was like papers.
Oh, this doesn't explain the papers.
I'm going to say that somehow this is such a leap, but I just was the first that went to my head, so I have to say
You're
it.
2 for 2 right now.
I almost want to say because they're childlike drawings that maybe she was in a traveling show and maybe she danced at one point and she has a secret child that remembers the dancing and is maybe coming back now and trying to show her that it's the child, and the child's like kind of like maybe like a little messed up because they were abandoned, but they remember the dancing. You look shocked. Is that really good or no?
Anna, you have a guess before I tell you what happened?
I feel like surely Liz is correct.
Or no, not at all.
Oh, I was gonna say sleepwalking.
Also incorrect.
Really good.
The dancing men.
Yeah.
The dancing men are a secret language used by a gang in Chicago, where she is from.
Okay.
And her old ex-lover, who stayed in the crime world where she left to come to England to avoid him.
Yeah.
He comes back and threatens her with this secret language. Eventually, he shoots and kills her husband, and then she shoots herself. And then, not St. Patrick, what's the guy? Sherlock Holmes finds out, and he figures it out.
Oh my god.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's wild.
All right, last one. Last one.
Chicago slander was happening in there. Also, how did he know that there was a secret language from Chicago? Has he ever been?
No, he just was like, this is like a language. And listening to him randomly guess at letters and be correct is ridiculous.
It's a little silly if you ask
me.
me.
I mean, sometimes it makes sense when Sherlock does that because it's like he studies like codes
I think
and
if you
languages and stuff, but sometimes no, they don't make it be like, yeah, this is a hobby of his, and he just I guess
yes, and in this one it's very clear that this is like something he's interested in.
Yeah,
but to listen to them describe how he figured it out from no context, nonsense. Last one. The Red-Headed League.
I'm already offended.
So sorry. There is a pawnbroker in London who runs a modest pawn shop.
Okay.
One day, his assistant tells him of an opportunity that's been published in the papers of the Red-Headed League is seeking new applicants. The Red-Headed League is a group of red-headed guys who have been given an endowment by a generous benefactor who was red-headed, and you have to work 4 hours a day or whatever. Not very much work is what is advertised. And all your only qualifications are that you're redheaded, and then they'll give you money for the propagation of the redheaded peoples and for their well-being.
Interesting.
So this guy goes, there's a huge mass of redheaded people trying to get into this office to get this position to apply. He gets in, and the redheaded guy there who's working the desk is like, oh my gosh, you're perfect. You've got the brightest, most reddest hair there ever was. All right, come in. You're in the club. All you have to do is from 10 to 2 every weekday, you have to come in here, copy the Encyclopedia Britannica, and then we'll pay you like a significant amount of money for the day.
Where do I sign up?
I don't know.
Okay.
If you let me know, I'll pay my hair.
This is a dream.
Eventually. So this guy does this for several months.
Yeah.
He comes in every day and they pay him. And eventually he
is dead.
No, not dead.
Sorry.
He stops getting paid. And the guy who was in charge that hired him is gone and they can't find him. Crack this mystery, guys.
That's so peculiar. I was almost wondering if he became dead, that maybe they were... This is not obviously not my guess, not correct. I thought maybe if the guy turned out to be dead, that maybe they were like, oh, redheads and they're like, they have different levels of anesthesia they need, and maybe they were doing secret operations.
Whoa.
And they were like, we'll pay you so much money, and then people were like, oh, it's not very much work because they're just putting you under to try to figure out how much they need, and maybe people were dying because they were overdosing.
Like, whoa, that's crazy.
But I gotta think, why... Encyclopedia.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. And I also was like, maybe this Victorian Britain is really old school, and they're like, there's people who are like, redheads are devil spawn, because that's a real thing that happened in history. People would be killed for being redheads. So
but then why would he be hired by a redheaded man?
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting for the redheads to start getting killed.
I also was kind of expecting it. So
he does not die.
So the boss just goes missing. Okay, here's my theory. Does the boss guy go dead, or is he just missing?
He's gone.
Missing.
I think that this is some weird thing where someone's like, I want people with red hair to write encyclopedias, and then he's going to take it somewhere and be like, this is an encyclopedia written by people with red hair. They're not I just messed that up, sorry.
You guys so angry, so emphatic about your point. Smack the mic.
Yes. They're not evil. They can write, and like gonna go like or like maybe if someone's like, I only want stuff written by people with red hair, they like these encyclopedias are all written by people with red hair. Or it's like something about like a cult, or like it's
something freaky.
Something weird is happening, and you're gonna say it, and I'm gonna be like, damn, that's crazy.
All right, redhead, do you have a guess?
Gosh, I really don't know about this one. I think that the writing of encyclopedias is arbitrary, and I think it's just that, like, I feel like there's some sort of spy thing going on where they want redheads to be coming to this location and being there for a bit and then be seen leaving, because it will confuse people, especially if maybe this one redheaded guy was under scrutiny and there were spies watching him. If you have a bunch of redheads milling about, the snipers can't tell which one is him.
That's really good. Is it more common for Irish people to be redheads? Because the Irish and the English canonically in world history, there's a lot of beef.
True. Yeah.
So I
would describe it as beef. Yeah, I think that's true.
I do think probably an Irishman is involved.
That's really that's
my guess is
and like confusion.
Yeah, my guess is Irishman would make sense, and I think there's spies involved.
Interesting.
And I think that the writing is arbitrary.
Interesting.
I saved this one.
Yeah.
I saved this one to the end because it is the most arbitrary.
It's
awesome.
The redheaded boss guy and the pawnbroker's assistant are criminal masterminds together, and they are robbing a bank, and they used all that time to dig a tunnel under the bank that was next to this guy's house.
That is so sad.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. Like, it makes no sense until you just like, you're like, what is happening? And then Sherlock Holmes just like walks down. He's like, they're robbing the bank. Stop them. And then that's it. And that's the episode.
Is the assistant also redheaded?
No, he's not redheaded. But it was a long con where he was like, I'm going to work for you for free or for half wages for like 3 months. And then he was like, hey, now go see my redheaded associate. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I guess they could have been confusing, though. Like, there's so many people at this one location digging a tunnel. Like, they're not digging a tunnel to the bank, but the idea is that there's all these people at this location. Surely nothing nefarious is going on.
I think it was just like this was a fake thing. There were no other redheads. They just wanted this one guy to leave his house for 4 hours
so
a
they
day.
could dig a tunnel from his house to the bank, which was next to it.
Oh, that's the part I missed.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's easy to miss because they say it in like 2 sentences, and you're like, and then it's done.
And then they're like, and now they're writing encyclopedias in the dark, and that's so crazy that you forget anything else that occurred.
Yeah, it's very silly.
I was right about that. I was like, I think the writing of encyclopedia is arbitrary. Yeah, it's a time waster.
It's just, what is that thing called? It's a red herring.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that gives you guys a good sense of this podcast. It is fun. Sherlock Holmes is fun. These are adventures, but they're not like great mysteries.
Yeah.
You know, there's not like
kind of like.
You can't really be Sherlock Holmes in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't put you in the place of him.
Yes. I know some people, like my mom, I love you, Mom, listen to mystery novels because they like to think and figure it out. You guys did a great job. I was really surprised because I was never going to get any of those things. You can't like figure any of these things out with Sherlock. He just has to tell you some insane like assumptions he's made.
Yeah.
So
he's like, this code, the dance is words.
Right? It's like,
and
what
it's spelling Chicago. The hit musical starring Catherine Zeta-Jones.
So
it is a good podcast. It's well put together. It is fun and it's easy. It doesn't ask a lot of you. It is old. Sometimes I have to look up words to understand what's going on. But it's classic for a reason. Hugh Bonneville does a great job reading. They put in sound effects. Not too much, sometimes a tad too much, but also not too little, and it kind of keeps you with it, and it's more than just an audiobook. So I would say this is really good. I would give Sherlock Holmes Short Stories 3.5, 3.75 even. I think. Yeah, I think
out of 5.
Yes,
okay.
out of 5 pods. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good podcast. Okay. I liked it a lot, and I appreciate you guys participating in my game.
I have a good game.
Honor. Do you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast.
How prepared of you?
So my podcast is, I didn't realize this when I came into it, but it's similar to how I've talked about Dimension 20 podcasts. I'll talk about one series, one podcast from that anthology. It's mainly D&D, but tabletop RPG anthology podcast. This is also a subsect of another tabletop RPG anthology podcast, but it's way more. Dimension 20 is like D&D is really their thing. This is an anthology podcast that does hit a lot of different tabletop RPGs. That's part of their like description on their website. Is they're like, we want to gobble up as many freaking games as we can.
Sure, try a lot of things.
Yeah, try a lot of things. So the overarching anthology podcast is called Realms of Peril and Glory, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's rad. I might have heard of it.
You might have. And then the specific one that I had stumbled upon is called Realms Blood on the Clocktower. Viewers and people in the room with me may or may not have heard of Blood on the Clocktower, which...
No.
Okay.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. It is a social deduction game that
Never mind, I have.
Yep. That I have been getting into recently. I've played, technically I think I've only played one game, but I have friends who really like it. I'm wanting to play more. I'm set up to start a game very soon.
It's kind of like Mafia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like one of those games.
Yeah, it's a social deduction game, kind of like Mafia, or if anyone's played Werewolf.
Which is the same game.
Yeah, One Night Ultimate Werewolf or whatever. Very much like that. There's a demon in the town that's killing people every night. There's minions with certain abilities to help them. And then there's townsfolk who are the innocent majority who are trying to find who the demon is and execute them during the day in order to win.
And they made this into a podcast?
They made this into a podcast.
Did they just play it?
Yeah, so it is an actual play of them playing this game. Because one thing that's interesting to talk a little bit more about Blood on the Clocktower is Blood on the Clocktower is designed, so unlike Mafia, where everyone is talking to everyone all the time, you just kind of, especially if you've played in person, like you just sit in a circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Blood on the Clocktower is a game where you're encouraged to go. You can play it online or in person, but even in person, you're encouraged to like go over in a corner and whisper with a couple people to go talk to the person like running the game. Can sometimes interact with different character abilities. You can go scurry off to a corner to talk to the storyteller, which is that person. Also, everyone gets a role. So like in Mafia, it's just there's the Mafia and there's the good guys. Every single character in Blood on the Clocktower, you will get a specific ability that comes with your character token. So everyone has a job to do. Like I said, there's that aspect of you want to have a lot of different conversations with different people. There's secrets going on. You might bluff one thing to some people and then a different thing to other people. So there's a lot of conversational parts of it.
And I feel like
that sounds fascinating.
It sounds super interesting, right? Because I feel like people who have played these kinds of games will understand, you know, okay, I'm the doctor, you know, I got to save the guy who's going to get killed tonight. And then we all got, hey, it's Jimmy, kill Jimmy or whatever. He's the bad guy. But how did they make this into a podcast, especially considering so many people are having side conversations?
Yeah.
Like, how did they do it?
Yeah. Honestly, it's really impressive to me because like I said, I've been getting more into Blood on the Clocktower. I'd started watching some playthroughs, especially on YouTube, like people who are in person and it's fairly high production. But I was like, could this make a good podcast? Let's go look. Because a lot of the time, if you look for these kinds of things, you can find podcasts that are labeled as such, but it's just normally it's a YouTube video and they just put it on Spotify. This is made to be a podcast, and I really appreciated that. So it was done in an online capacity. So these are, which honestly surprised.
Okay, I'm with it now.
Yeah. But it did surprise me because the audio quality is like pretty good. It's very clear. I say very clear. It wasn't clear until a couple episodes in for me, which I think is a testament to how well they put it together, that these are people recording from their own homes in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. There will be like one or two people every episode who it's like their mic's maybe not as good, but it's only noticeable because you realize, everyone else is at professional grade audio.
Sure, yeah.
So it's really nice. They talk about, like, Realms talks about, they're like, we do actual play and we really try to make it a good sound experience, and they do. The audio design is, in a lot of ways, pretty minimal, but it's just good audio. They will add in, like, there's voice effects very lightly, but that kind of add mysticism for when the storytellers are, like, saying things to explain the game or talk to the players. There's some little sound effects, like, very simple thing that is really helpful is it's online. They're like, there's these side calls that people can open up individually for, like, if one player wants to whisper to another and they're talking during the day, and then if another player joins that group, it's now a 3-person conversation. There's like a little sound of like a door opening, just enough to be unobtrusive, but you're like, okay, I get that someone else entered this what was a private conversation. Now there's 3 people.
I wonder,
that's fascinating.
this does feel very much like an experiment in like how far can we push podcasts as a medium?
I like it. Like, I think
it's tickling my brain a little bit. I'm interested.
And then, like, something about this is so fascinating. It kind of makes you feel like you're a part of the action, because it's like, if, say, it was a YouTube video, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, Smosh plays.
Yeah.
Like, you can, like, see...
Which also Smosh has played Blow on the Clocktower once.
Because, like, you can maybe see, like, a bird's eye view, but, like, having those, like, cues, like, okay, I can tell these two people are whispering. I can imagine they're in a corner. I can imagine that in the realm of this pretend that they're maybe in, like, somebody's house and somebody else comes in because they've seen them go off. Like, to me, that's very, like, interactive and kind of makes me feel like, oh, okay, I'm a little bit more active than just being like a passive viewer.
It's almost more engaging, I think, than doing it by sight. Because if you just saw somebody playing Blood on the Clocktower or Mafia, it's just a bunch of people together, and it's like not, cool or sexy or whatever. But listening to the soundscape, it feels, it gets it a little closer to an audio drama, because you can imagine, like exactly what you're saying, Liz, you can imagine the space. And so it feels more dramatic, almost more like a movie than just like watching some guys drink Mountain Dew while they talk about the imposter or whatever.
Yeah. And you guys are exactly right that this is something I think really works for this. And they even they capitalize on this really well. So there's two storytellers, which the storyteller is like, if you've played Mafia, the narrator who's like, here's who died tonight. They died by tripping down the stairs or whatever. And they like wake people up in the right order in the middle of the night, etc. So they have two storytellers, Emily Bates, who's more so the mechanical storyteller, who's keeping track of, especially because there's a lot of sort of information passing in Blood on the Clocktower. So like, there's a character called the fortune teller who every night they wake up, they can pick two characters, and if one of them is the demon, they'll get a yes. If neither is the demon, they'll get a no. And there's a red herring to make it not quite as like, okay, if you find the demon, it's true forever. But there's also, if that character is poisoned, it might be different. There's characters who get more abstract information than just yes or no. And so the storyteller throughout the game is making decisions on what is the information that should be given to all these characters in the way to make the game the most interesting and fun and working for the characters. So Emily Bates is handling most of that. And then Zach FG is the other storyteller, who he even says in one episode, I'm the one who's kind of here for fun. But he has this really great narrating voice. He adds the flavor for like when someone dies, he's like, you find their corpse mangled and blah, blah, blah.
Whoa.
And like really paints this soundscape for people and makes this image in your head. And when it's going through the day and there are these different conversations happening to people, one thing that's really helpful is whenever they switch to a different like conversation where like three people are whispering in the corner, Zach will say, he's like, and while this is going on, the demon is bluffing X character to these two people who trust each other, like whatever. Like he describes each time sort of what the...
Gives you the context.
Gives you the context, and he really... They say, like, we're the storytellers who will be guiding the players, but also you listeners through what's going to be happening in this game.
Because I assumed against, but I guess you as the listener knows who the demon is.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting choice to make.
Yeah. They could definitely change that.
It makes it more of like you're a ghost in the town and less of like I'm just like a passer through. Like you are in it, I guess.
I got two questions for you.
Yep.
How long per episode in total episodes?
Yeah.
And is it good?
Yeah. So I think it's a pretty good, like, it's fairly long because each episode is a full game, but each episode is like an hour and a half. There's an episode that's sub an hour, but it is a full game that they go through. So you can, if you've got like a long car ride and you're like, I want to listen through like a whole, let's see if they catch the demon or not.
Yeah.
You can put this on. It's not super long. They take time to explain things, but they also keep things moving really well. but it's clear that the storytellers know and are trying to explain things as they go along for anyone to be able to follow along, and all the players know. Like, they'll stop sometimes in their conversations and be like, real quick to Mike, here's why we're saying X thing. Now you listener are caught up. We'll go back to this. And all the players are really good at that. They're entertainers. It's people who are good at this. They like bringing along the listener. Like I said, about an hour and a half. The most recent episode, there's only 5 episodes out right now. I think there will be, I don't know how long the season, they said it was supposed to be, not too much longer.
1 million.
1 million. But yeah, the most recent episode they put out was a pilot episode that was a teeny tiny little game of 5 people, less than an hour to listen to. Fun little bite-sized thing. And how good it is, I think it's really fun. I think it's a good listen. Like I said, they put effort into being like, could anyone listen to this? Sometimes I think they sort of rush ahead. They have some, in only 5 episodes, they already are to some setups where it's a little more complicated than I think a newbie to Blood on the Clocktower would be able to follow. Even I'm not like super new, but I don't know a ton, and even I was like, can you explain one more time what this demon does? So sometimes that doesn't quite get there, but they do put the effort in for that. I think the sound design is really good. I think it's really fun to listen to, and they do a really good job of being like, let's take you into these little moments. Oh, one last thing that they do that in some of the other video ones I'd seen them do, this doesn't exist, especially because a lot of the time they'll be in person, like everyone's quiet at night because everyone's doing night actions and they don't overhear. But in this, at night, everyone goes into their own individual call and they sort of like monologue to the mic a little bit saying, okay, at the end of day 2, here's where I'm at, here's my thought, here's my strategy going into the next game. And so you get, which feels like a very podcast strength of a thing, to be like, okay, let's see into the heads of these players for a little bit, these characters, if you will. And you get that little glimpse to then know what their ulterior motive is going into the next day. Really fun. That's I would say maybe same as you, like a solid like 3.75.
A good podcast. Maybe not
4.
breaking...
Maybe 4.
Breaking the 4 mark? Are you serious?
It might be
really
4
good.
Bloods out of Clocktower. I think they do
That's
a
good
really
pod.
good
That's
job.
a really good pod.
Yeah.
I think they do a really solid job. This is a podcast I would recommend to people, especially if anyone's like, I think I want to get into Blood on the Clocktower. I'd be like, this would be great.
Gotcha.
Speaking of really solid,
Yes.
Liz!
Yes.
What podcast did you bring for us?
Yeah.
So that's such an excellent question.
Yes, because you were thinking, all right,
I was thinking
we've got a few.
I was thinking of 2. The one that I think that would work best in this medium is called Guilty Pleasures. And it is a podcast. It's just like a movie review podcast.
Oh, okay.
But instead of being like a little bit like snobby, they'll do like High School Musical 2, or they'll throw it back. They've done like Sky High.
Oh,
and
sure,
so the point of it is, it's not necessarily like movies that are like Conclave, and we're going to talk about like why us as film majors. Like, it's more of like, this is a great movie and here's why. And I think it's really good if anyone's like trying to break into like understanding film and also like trying to keep up with like film pop culture.
Do they talk about like the cinematography? Because that kind of almost seems like the snobbery you're talking about.
When they talk about the cinematography, like their latest episode was more of like an Oscars recap and more of like, why is this movie snubbed because it has such great cinematography? We can get into that. I don't know if either of you have seen Conclave.
Yes.
Wait, did it not win anything?
I think it won lighting, or did it win sound?
That movie was awesome.
Yeah,
it won like something, but it was so snubbed.
It was snubbed a lot. This is a fun little story for the listeners. I watched Conclave, and as I watched it, I was actively developing a fever. And so I started the movie healthy. By the end, I was very ill. And then I went to bed that night, and I had a fever dream, stress dream the entire night that I had to run the Conclave.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh gosh, the Pope won't be the Pope if I don't do it.
We're not hitting the number of votes.
So
you just Googled it. What did you Google?
I just was going to talk about just like the list of movies they've done.
I see.
Just some, because I feel like it's refreshing, because it's not like, I mean, they've never done like Birdman. Like, they're not like hitting the best picture hits, but it's like just genuinely like movies that I think are very popular in like the pop culture, and they just discuss it.
Is it the angle almost like it? I thought it'd be like so good, they're so bad they're good, but that's not quite it.
So it's more of just like something that you've been binge watching. It's like, this is my guilty pleasure. Like the episode that really got me hooked, I randomly got into this movie. I saw like one clip of it and I went, that's really interesting. It's called The Hunt. It's like a commentary on American politics where like these people that used to run for Democratic offices get like booted out of their jobs because they were in a group chat and they called like Republican voters like country bumpkins and all that. And like, people retaliated and they lost their careers. Well, then they decide, like the Democratic, like whatever.
Yeah, these like ex officials.
They decide like, oh, we're going to round up all these people that like found us out that we were making fun of our like constituents. Kind of elitist. And they're going to like force them to kill each other.
Whoa.
And the catch of the movie is that they got one of the wrong people, and she's like, I've actually donated to your campaign, but they think she's just a Republican. So it's a commentary of like how we view each other as like non-human when we don't politically agree. Because at the end, the person that survives who's like not actually like a Republican voter, like what they think that she is, or like she didn't ruin anybody's life by like finding out that they were like whatever, like their controversies.
Sure.
She was like, you realize you're just as bad as these other people, and she's like, that doesn't matter. Like the truth is what I say it is, and it's like, but it got canceled because people were like, because both sides were like, this is wrong, and it's like it's necessarily like a commentary on like how our morality changes because of our politics.
That's so.
If that makes sense.
I think I saw ads for this. I thought it was going to be like, what is that? Greatest Game?
Yeah, the Greatest Game. Yeah,
that's not what it's called. What is it? It's something.
I think it is the Greatest.
What are you trying to describe? Like where they kill
there's
each other?
There's a short story where a guy gets stranded on an island that is owned by this one dude who just hunts people because he's like the best hunter ever. That's what it reminded me of when I saw these advertisements, and that's kind of what it sounds like now. But
the most dangerous
game. Thank you.
That's what's like it's based off of, but
it's much more modern politics.
It's very American politics.
Sure. I could see how this movie like didn't do super well.
It did not,
because it's really politically charged and it sounds a little ucky. So what did the host kind of have to like add about it?
What I found really interesting is they basically were just like cutting out the politics. This movie's just a commentary, and it does a good job of making a commentary and making basically a fool of American politics.
Sure.
And saying like the way that we let this idea like control our lives is crazy. That's basically what the movie is trying to say.
Sure. And because you're mad about it for its politics, like
you are
proving my point.
Exactly. Sure. So it's like the creator of the movie is like, you're reinforcing the point. It did not get released in theaters. Like I think it had it like kind of got like shut down. Like nobody went to see it. Like that's just an example of the movie.
But that is interesting. Like that's that kind of content is interesting to like what is. And not that these guys are like professional critics, but what is a critic who's like actually seen this like piece of media think about it as opposed to like the Twitter mob, you know what I mean? Which is like,
they're like, they just try to be like objective about the movie. Like they're like, how does this movie operate? Is it good at what it does?
I think that's like an enriching perspective to be like, let's actually analyze this piece of text. And let's take a second away from the content and see what it's trying to do. Yeah, because I think a lot of movies try to do things and they fail, or they just get like stopped in the tracks. Yeah, that's so interesting.
I also think if like this is called guilty pleasures, you're saying it's like a not snobbish.
They're like, not very snobby
film
about it.
Critique, because it's really easy to find film commentary channels that are very like snobbish and not fun to listen to, honestly. But if you're in a space that feels kind of like non-judgmental and is like, okay, here's how we're gonna break down sort of the interesting things this movie is doing without being like, every intelligent person knows that this
you don't know about the Hinkle angle.
Right. It's very approachable, and like they've done, what are other good movies they've done? They've done like Bring It On. They did RRR right when it came out and was talking about like the whole like it's like a Bollywood movie. Oh, okay. It's like talking about like, and it's also like movies that have been out for forever. Like they did Paddington Bear. So it's mostly just like movies that are good. I got hooked on it because they did a review on the movie Prey, which is the sequel to Predator, but it's a prequel. Are you familiar with the Predator movies?
I know. Get to the chopper.
You know, get to the chopper.
And I get like I know
Get
the premise.
to the chopper.
Yes, you can ask my roommates. I love Predator.
That rocks.
So it's and what I didn't know about Prey because I'd been so far removed from Predator for a while.
Sure,
But
you had to take a step back.
I was just because
Too intensive of a love.
it's just college happened. Like
Sure,
you find
sure,
other
sure.
things. But it's they were so honest in their review, and what I also appreciate about this podcast is they're very appreciative of art. Like they understand the movie art as a genre. So they were like, Prey is a good movie, not only in its storytelling ability, but it's very like raw. But the other thing that they mentioned is like controversies around the movie. So something about Prey is that it was filmed in English, but it's actually dubbed in Comanche because the movie takes place in Native American America.
Oh,
Right.
I did see that. Yes.
Right when like French colonists are on the shores. So like it was originally like that's where it takes place. Like the main characters are Comanche. And what the controversy was is people were like, I don't want to have to go to the movie theater and watch it in subtitles. Like, so the movie as you would see it in the theaters was in English. You can find the dubbed version. I've seen both. And honestly, this is also part of my opinion, but like movies that are, I like movies that are written in like languages that aren't English.
Yeah.
Like there's something genuine, and I don't know like what it adds to the movie because like they are, like they say things in Comanche in the English version, but to have the whole movie in Comanche and also like have the A plot of the Predator, which is crazy. The Predator by itself is crazy, but to have this B plot, which is the French are here, the colonists are here, and to have this community battle both colonists, one where the Predators, the Predator also attacks the colonists, but like the Predator is an alien force, but so are the colonists.
Yes.
I think and the way they describe it as well, I was like, this is a beautiful movie with symbolism that it's just going to get overlooked because people are like, oh, it's just the prequel to Prey. Or like it's just like a Predator movie.
What an absolutely insane setting though.
Yes.
For the Predator sequel movie.
It is.
It's a sci-fi film. How did what?
Good. It is beautifully done. I'm so excited. I love talking about Predator. It's really beautifully done, and I think just not to spoil the end, but there's an end credit scene where there's this moment where there's like more Predator ships coming, but if you know anything about the Predator travels alone.
Sure.
So you have to wonder like if it's not more because they're all coming at once. It's like this isn't more Predators. This is being translated as the colonists are coming. So like the entire time you're watching the movie, you're like, oh my god, they eventually beat the Predator. Sorry for anyone being spoiled for Prey.
Spoiler.
It came out in like 2021. But then you also think like the French are coming. Like you watch this movie and you think we as viewers, as like people from history, like we know what happens afterwards.
That's so fascinating.
Yes.
Do you feel like this podcast adds more value to you in that you're like, I've seen a movie and I want to hear their thoughts, or I haven't seen a movie and I want to know if it's good. Let me go listen to the boys.
I will watch most episodes. I try to pick ones like I've actually never heard of this movie. What is it about? They did one that was called Push, and like it's Chris Evans is in it, and it's one with the early 2000s, and it's like a superhero movie, and it's an absurd movie, but it was just funny to get like their perspective on it. And I know it's not going to be like it's a great movie because it was directed by so and so, and like the snob, like
it's more
it's more of like here's why this is a good movie, or even if it's a bad movie, this is why it's funny and why it's good to watch.
Liz,
it's really good.
Is it a good podcast? What's the rating? Give us the pods.
I think it's a very good podcast. Unfortunately, they're ending it soon.
What?
So this is also like the other podcasts I listened to. I was like, they have so much longer. This one, they're ending at the end of the year and they're starting to do something else.
Wow.
So it's like it's Zach Kornfeld from the Try Guys. He's in it. And then two other people as well in that same kind of like group. So they like do lots of stuff. But I enjoy it as like if you're looking for something to be like movie critical, they've done like Wicked and they did like an Oscars recap. Yeah.
What's your rating? If you're gonna,
I would say a 3. It's
I see.
It's not necessarily something that you like get super invested in because it's not like super drama or anything, but it's great if you just need something to listen to while you're folding your laundry.
Hell yeah.
So it's like a nice calm podcast.
Good stuff.
I like that. A calm podcast about different stories about people getting murderated.
Well, not all of them are like that.
Yeah, there are other movies out there.
They did like the new Pinocchio, and they did Monster House.
Speaking of emails, let's go take a trip down to the podpodcastpod@gmail.com inbox.
Yes.
Now that we've talked about Sherlock.
Oh, perhaps we should see.
Perhaps we should check in.
Yeah.
Listener, we would love your thoughts on anything and everything.
Yeah.
Write in to podpodcastpod@gmail.com and we will read it off. Today, I think we have time for one email.
Mm-hmm.
This is comeuppance.
This is a comeuppance.
Knock, knock. It's the theater kids. Hello, Honor and Sam, but really I'm mainly talking to Sam. Hello, Sam. This one goes out to you.
Whoa.
I want to address your point in the December 9th episode in which you claimed that plays and musicals are the same, and more specifically, that a musical is a type of play. I think this is a fair misconception to make. However, I am of the opinion, and I think many scholars, including William Shakespeare, Bill Nye, and Lin-Manuel Miranda would agree, a play is not a musical, and a musical is not a play. This is not a square rectangle situation. Plays can have music, but diegetic music. If a character in a play sings, they are actually literally singing. Not so for musicals. I personally think that the use of non-diegetic music in musicals adds a different atmosphere to how characters communicate, and even, I would argue, to the story itself. Characters in musicals are living in a reality in which regular speech ceases to be sufficient for their strongest emotions. They have to sing about it. Sometimes they even have to dance about it. And that colors the story differently. Then, on the other hand, characters in plays don't have the channel of non-diegetic music to express themselves. They have to make do with words. And so they stretch out their spoken words into the absolute limit to make them hold all their feelings. Cool stuff! Also, I should note that there are some shows that mess around with the boundaries between plays and musicals in cool and inventive ways, and sometimes those lines can even be blurred a little bit. Again, cool stuff. So anyway, I hope this helps you. You almost seem like you're raging out over there, Liz.
No, I just sigh. Sorry,
okay. No, you're good.
What I realized.
No, I am raging out.
Perfect. So anyway, I hope this helps you avoid getting into a fight with a bunch of theater kids because you don't want them to start tap dancing, because then you really don't stand a chance. Also, cool podcast. Okay, bye.
Gotcha.
Sincerely, Sherlock B. Holmes. Sherlock, I listened to so many of your stories only for you to correct me on what you are incorrect about.
I want them to reply to this only because I really want to know what the B stands for. Is it Benjamin?
Tell us
Is
what
it
the B
Bernard?
stands for, Sherlock.
Is it Bartholomew?
Is it Bangladesh?
We are dying to know. Do you have your opinion already? Because I kind of have mine.
I think I know, but I want Sherlock to solve the mystery, as is tradition.
Oh, so what does that mean? So we're just gonna not talk about it?
I guess we'll wait on Sherlock B. Holmes. About musicals and plays.
Okay. Oh, the B. I thought I meant the email. Like your opinion on plays and musicals. Sorry.
My opinion on plays and musicals, this got brought up because I reviewed a musical podcast, and Sam said, plays and musicals are the same thing. And I said, you're going to get attacked. And now you have an email.
A play is anything that happens on the stage.
That's not true.
Oh.
That is true.
That's not true.
That is true.
That's not true.
So if someone gets
if
up
you sing, it's a musical.
Nope.
I got a question for you. If somebody gets up there and does a monologue, is that a play?
Yes.
That's
so have you never heard of a one-woman show?
I have, but a monologue
That's a whole show.
A monologue is different from a one-woman show.
Sam loves to lie.
I'm literally just I'm making
He did lie to me earlier.
That's true.
He loves to lie.
I'm making a consistent, cohesive framework in which to analyze theatrical texts. Okay,
you're limiting yourself though, because then you have no specific word for a play. If you're saying all of these things are plays,
so if it doesn't happen, so let's say like me and some pals go to the middle of speaker circle and start acting out a scene. Is it a play? We're not on a stage. Sorry.
I think that's a good point.
For some reason, I've gotten so mad.
No, I think that's
because
fair.
You're right. If people get up on a stage and start doing improv, is that a play?
No, improv's not a play because it's not scripted.
Yeah.
These are good points. These are good points.
Thank you. I tried.
This is so rare. Can we?
No, I think these are good
this
points.
moment?
I think I've gotten
I don't think what I think is wrong. I think it just needs to be refined to make my categorization system more effective.
Is
That's
that
what
like how
being
your
wrong
brain like
means.
processes? Like, do you process by saying like anything that happens here is X, Y, and Z?
I think that's not my brain. I think
All
that's
if-then statements?
I think it's like literally human experience. We have to categorize things to understand them.
I think it is true. Like us as humans, like we like things that are in neat little boxes.
Yes.
Our brains, like when we were just on the cusp of human evolution and we were developing in this crazy place called the universe, we had like just there were like only like 3 things we had to categorize, which was like this thing will kill me and I can kill this thing. Like it's like that's kind of like how humans have operated now, or like and now it's like is hot dog sandwich, like it's like we used to worry about tigers, now we're like
due to the slinky fallacy, a hot dog is neither a sandwich nor a taco.
What is the slinky fallacy? The slinky
if
dog?
you put it in like a spiral cutter, it will turn into a slinky, which is a unique property that sandwiches and tacos don't have.
So
categorizing a hot dog as its own.
So what
thing.
happens when you put a sandwich in there?
That's literally the most nonsensical thing you've ever said. It's
Wait,
also not a fallacy.
I'm confused.
What you said was gibberish.
No, I have a question.
You should feel ashamed. You actually need to be educated. I'm sending you off to boarding school so you can become a proper person, and maybe one day you'll contribute.
Why are we
Good
yelling?
real listeners will understand this, and I just might have people coming to the podcastcastpod@gmail.com inbox.
Please do.
Back me up.
So wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you said this like a spiralizer, or like, so what happens when you put a sandwich in it though? Like if it
falls apart.
I'm trying to picture what you're talking about. Like
there's no like through line like sausage thing that will hold together as a spiral.
So like,
sorry, Liz's face cocked, mouth open, being like, "What could you possibly be talking about?"
I mean, I agree. I don't think a hot dog is a sandwich, nor is it a taco, because those are 2 completely different things.
Exactly,
but
like plays and musicals.
I think a musical is very different from a play. I think some people talk in musicals, but that does not make it a play. I think they are of the same branch. And they're very much cousins of a theater motif, but it doesn't necessarily make them the same.
Listener, we're going to hold a vote. We're going to decide this.
Oh, my God.
Listener, go to wherever you're listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Leave a 5-star review.
Give 5 stars if you think they're different.
No. Okay. Honor, that's not... Promo our podcast better.
That's good.
Leave 5 stars.
Everyone who does 5 stars agrees with me and Liz.
Yep.
Leave 5 stars either way.
And Sherlock
regardless,
Holmes.
leave 5
Sherlock
stars.
But then how...
Leave 5 stars, and then you can write something if you want to. And then that's a review. Good job.
Personally tweet Sam's AI assistant
if you
that
would.
schedules all his meetings.
That's how it just happened.
Ask, does it think plays are musicals? That's what... Okay, honestly, though, can I get really real for a second? I hate when somebody is like, I don't understand this, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Because it's like, do you think it knows? Do you think it knows?
It doesn't.
This is like, I'm like, when the, like, if robots ever take over, they're going to use this and be like, you said this about us. And I'm going to be like, yeah. I'm like, why don't you, like, I just can't, like,
Podcast will show up in a robotic courtroom at your trial.
And I'm going to be like, damn, I guess I really did say that. And then I'm going to become like Soylent Green.
Yeah, off to the cyber jail with me.
Yeah.
What are they even going to make us do? Pour water on their servers, or like cool their servers, or like when... That's what everyone's like, the robots are going to take over. I'm like, and do what with us?
Yeah, they don't care.
And listener, if you want to know the answer to that, tune in next time to Podcast, where we will be answering these hard-hitting questions.
Real.
To make sure you get those answers, follow us wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Honor, thank you for potting with me.
Thank you for potting with me. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. This was a blast.
This was so fun. Oh my
I
gosh.
love chatting.
This was a great time. This was a great time.
was
I've learned new
wonderful.
podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of the robots.
I wouldn't be.
I want to hear their takes on High School Musical 2, the best High School Musical movie.
They thought
The
it was
podcast
great.
or the robots?
The podcast thought High School Musical
Podcast.
2 was great. I don't know what the robots think. Well, what's great? Okay, I don't even have to get into this. But like, at the end of the day,
all right, listener, thank you
Let
for
the
tuning
listener
in.
go.
We'll talk to you later.
bye.